regenerative life support system, which is a fancy way of saying that we've got a toilet that you use, and then a machine that goes chugga 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 chug, chugga 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 chug, chugga 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 chug, chugga 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 chug, and then you go to the galley and you make yourself a cup of coffee. A toilet that you use, and then you go to the galley and you make yourself a cup of coffee. A toilet that you use and you make yourself a cup of coffee. A toilet that you use. Chugga 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 chug, chugga 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 chug, chugga chugga chug, and you make yourself a cup of coffee.
That would go great with a cheeseburger if you like drinking piss with your cheeseburger.
And don't ask me how I got to eggs on space station. Don't ask me how I got to eggs on space station. I got to eggs on space station. I got to eggs. I got to eggs. I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again. But we destroyed that technology. We destroyed that technology. Destroyed that technology. Well, I'm one of the science guys. And I'm one of the repair guys. And fortunately, there's lots of science, and lots of repair to do on station, so that will certainly keep us all busy. And a shaft that you rotate.
So, I mean, like on the space station, how many of these would you have?
7, because we have 7 windows.
What happens if you get a leak on that?
Then you have a leak.
What happens if you get a leak on that?
Then you have a leak. Then you have a leak. Then you have a leak.
You just have a leak.
And what you would do is...
You lose air.
Yeah, you would probably seal the whole cupola off. And then there's probably a plan, I don't know off the top of my head, but there's probably a plan.
To suck the coffee out, or actually sip the coffee, because we're no longer sucking out of a bag now. We're drinking from a cup, and the coffee continues to climb up that acute angle, and until the whole bag is drained.
Doing things you're interested in, like?
Science experiments at home. Go figure. In my spare time on station, off-duty time, I do science experiments on my own design because that's what I like to do to relax. I only fix things and take care of things, but I also was able to go off into the woods and go snorkeling in ponds and look at pond mud under a microscope and ask questions and get excited about just the world around you. It's going to cost both money and human lives to do this, but in the long run, I think it will be worth it. It's kind of like you're the human equivalent of an ant farm, because we're using the human capability of having a pair of hands and a pair of eyes with a brain on orbit to twiddle knobs, Don Pettit here from NASA. I'm at home due to the COVID-19 virus. Working from home. Let's start off with the second most important activity that most human beings do after they get up in the morning. Get yourself a cup of coffee. A cup of coffee. When you are an engineer designing a spacecraft, you need to be able to work a few pleasantries into it that are an ingrained part of our human culture. How do we make our proper cup of coffee? You start off with the toilet and you go through a plumbing mess, into a distillation outfit, into a bunch of filters, into the galley, and then to a proper cup of coffee. What can you do to transcend from drinking your coffee through a straw from a bag into something that's more fitting for a proper cup of coffee? Here we have Earth Cup, first version of a space cup. We do on orbit. The first thing when you get up is exactly the first thing people do here on Earth. The second thing we want to do on orbit is to make a cup of coffee. So we float around the corner to where the galley is, and you can hear all the machinery, the pumps are pumping, and it's going chug-a-chug-a-chug and whirring, and you can hear gurgles and things, and you make yourself your proper cup of coffee for getting started on that day. Now, the NASA engineers called this system a regenerative life support system. And I like to call it the coffee machine, because this ensemble of equipment has the uncanny ability to turn yesterday's coffee into today's coffee. So with that, let me sign off from my kitchen. I need to get back to teleworking on the lunar lander, and maybe we'll have a coffee machine available on our lunar base. So long. Habitability design.